Oh, landmines and jellyfish. Welcome back to Knives, I guess, and it's not just a phase, Mom. But last night we did a live stream and we went in on the Oknife Gaur. So let's take a look at what we're holding first because you know I spoil you guys. And first things first, and most importantly, the pocket clip is tip up, which is the Lord's carry. We have got this paper micarta right here. We got a flipper tab, so let's flick the bean. And we've got 4 inches of D2 steel. So, you know, if you didn't see the review video, because that's been a while back, when I carried this thing, I really enjoyed it. There was only one gripe, and that is the dingus end right here. The way this thing slopes down, which I'm not a huge fan of that, but we'll get to that in a minute. It made it really hard to pull this out of the waistband, because anywhere you grab right here, like it doesn't like to grip. You got to get down on this thing and really pull it out. So it didn't last long in there. It wound up in the pocket, and this is like the first thing I spent more time in the pocket than the waistband, just because I got a ton of crap in my pocket, and I didn't want all that crap beating on the scales. I didn't want to, deal with that, digging my keys out around that, all that stuff. But it did really well there, and that kind of turned me around on carrying in the pocket more than the waistband. It's just it was so much easier and more convenient, and it did well there. It was much easier to get in and pull this thing out. And, in the pocket, it did really well. Now, this paper micarta definitely picks up stains like a bucket of hot damn. It did pick up some stains. It just did not want to come back out, which, I mean, it's now a used knife. Kind of don't care that much. But it's worth noting. And, it cut well. It did everything well. Very, very favorable review. So, we started in on the live stream, and with the sharpness tester, our edge started off at 166, which is right between a double-edged razor blade and a utility razor. So, a really good number. And it came out of the gate swinging. It was nice to have a full flat grind after the garbage Camillus and the garbage Fox Edge, which were both hollow grinds. This took next to no pressure to make the cuts. It just blazed right through them. And for that first hour, it did really, really good. We stopped at the end of the hour like we do. We checked on the paper. It was still cutting that nicely. The cardboard cuts were still clean. And we checked the edge on the sharpness tester, and it read 295. Which, at 295, you are still at a utility razor to high-end cutlery new edge. So, not bad on the edge wear. And it still went through. It did all the things good. And then we hit the 2-hour mark. And that was where things started getting confusing. We did the sharpness test and it read 513, which 513 is a moderately rolled edge, right in that range, which a little bit surprising, little bit not surprising. We'll touch on that in a minute. But it was still doing the paper cut clean. It was doing all the things pretty well, but, it said moderately rolled edge, kind of getting there into the need of maintenance. We pushed through for our next hour into hour 3, and then I did the readings on that, and it got confusing because it read 430 to 450. We checked several times in a few areas, and it was reading 430 to 450. And the primary area we were testing is right here where the point of contact is with the start of the cut, because that takes more abuse than anything else on the blade. That's where all of our snags on paper come from. And it was still doing, the good paper cuts. It was doing all the things. I don't know why the number dropped. We might have had an edge starting to roll and then polished it out on the dirt in the cardboard, because this cardboard's got a lot of dirt, a lot of grit, warehouse dirt, dirt from the back of the trucks, dirt from our back room. The cardboard is really dirty. So I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe somebody that knows more than I do can point this out in the comments and explain what happened in better detail than I can. This is hard for me to articulate. I'm not sure what happened there. But we got 30 more minutes. We got 30 more minutes into the 3.5-hour range, and the cuts went from clean, and I mean, it fell off a cliff. At about the 3-hour, 10-minute mark, it started going down, but at the 3-hour, 30-minute mark, these were the cuts we were getting, and this is what we look for in this channel for edge devastation. And that 3.5 hours is just the time counted actually cutting, not the time we took for breaks, anything else. That was just the time spent cutting, just so you understand what's happening here. So that was a lot of linear feet of cardboard, but for D2 pretty much always lasts about right at 4 hours like clockwork. Discounting the Ozark Trail knife, and I'm not sure what happened. I don't know what's happening with that thing, but D2 pretty much always goes 4 hours like clockwork before we get that. So that half hour of loss, I'm not sure what happened, because we didn't beat on it nearly as hard as we beat on the Sentry L1 here. We beat on the Sentry L1 pretty hard, and it did 3 hours and 30 minutes. And, so I figured we were going to back off a little bit, not go crazy, because we had some really difficult cardboard, and with this flat grind, the pocket cleaver, and the handle, I figured we were going to have some fun blasting through that stuff and really abusing it. So a little bit less beating on this thing with the really tough cardboard. Still got 3.5 hours. I think Oknife just uses a little bit softer D2, little bit lower HRC for these things because, this is two different knives with similar grinds, and they both hit 3.5 hours with different levels of abuse. I will say this one right here, the ergonomics, left a fairly large blister right here that had to be popped. I had to lance that thing and drain a bunch of fluid out. That was a significant blister. This thing, over that 3.5 hours, it did not give me any problems ergonomically. This is one of the most comfortable knives in the hand we have used to do cardboard slayer with. It's right there with the Buck 110. Literally no discomfort. No matter how hard I had to push it, no discomfort. And we even, interesting side tangent, we had somebody ask about trying to cut a J shape to see if this thing would curve in the cuts on cardboard. It won't cut like a full J, but it did do a wide crescent cut, which was kind of interesting. I kind of figured as tall as this thing was, like 1.5 inches, it was going to wedge and just go straight and not turn, but we were able to turn it in the cut, which is something we hadn't tried before. That's pretty cool. I went to sharpen this thing, and that was also where things got a little bit confusing. This is one of those D2s that with the precision adjust, I could not get a burr to come up. I hogged off a bunch of material. All the old material on the edge had been gone for a while, and I flipped it over, and I kept going just side on the 220 grit stone. A burr just refused to come up. So we went through the rest of the sharpening, we went through the rest of the stropping, and we got somewhere around 172 on that edge. It was basically right back to factory when it should have been sharper. At least I feel like it should have been sharper. I might not be doing as good with the precision adjust as I think I am. It shaved pretty easily. It did the things really well. The cut on the paper, it was a little bit snaggy. It wasn't perfect, and I'm not sure. Obviously, I didn't spend enough time on the 220 grit. Obviously, because I didn't get that, I couldn't feel that burr coming up. So, yeah. Now, just a few minutes ago, because, I've done all the things I want to it, I went and got the Kin Onion belt grinder out, and I ran it through that. And one of the reasons I don't do that, I don't know if it'll show up on camera. Quite possibly it will. But right here at the tip, you got a rounded area now, just from the belt doing what the belt does. And I hate doing that on knives that cost more than about $20 just because I want that pristine edge, but I needed to see if this got better numbers because I actually did pull a burr on that. It's so fast and so easy to get a burr out of that. And the cut on the paper, let's get a piece out. Something that I've already torn to shreds. But the cut on the paper, it's a nicer cut. So, I obviously did not spend enough time on 220 grit. I thought I did, but I've had knives where I can't feel a burr come up on it and it's still got plenty sharp. I just didn't do it on this one. And I think part of that is because it's just softer steel. It did feel a little sticky while I was on that 220 grit, a little bit hard to push. And once I got through that and started going through the stones that you polish with, it was a lot easier. But that 220, it really was sticky in there. Again, pretty sure just softer steel. So let's take a look at the edge now after I've done all that to it, just because now we're curious and I got the new toy. So here is our sharpness tester. And let's get a clip in there. And I burned through so many test clips doing that last night. I'm kind of learning how many of these we end up going through. And, Pepperidge Farm style. You open it and it still ain't open. Son of a dingus. But I'm definitely gonna have to buy a lot of these while we're doing this because man, we burned through something like 15 of them last night. And some of that was we were retesting, trying to figure out why the numbers didn't look right. Because I went through 5 tests when it dropped from 513 to 430, 450-ish. Not 100% sure what happened there. I am not. All right, let's power this bad boy on. And contact. All right. Yeah, 139. That's what I was expecting off the precision adjust, and I didn't get it. It still wasn't a bad sharpen. It's again, I just did not spend enough time at 220 grit, obviously. And that 139 is in utility razor blade range, just outside double edge razor. So it's a really good number. Like, it's a really good number. You saw how it cut. Like, it shaves, it does everything. Like, it's a really nice edge. So we got the edge back on it, and now I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with the thing. I may give it away later, you know, because like I'm starting to do giveaways with the knives that I'm done with, just because I've got so many of them, and I'm not gonna use them again because I'm on to you know, bigger and better and different stuff. So you guys know I love sharing what happened with Cardboard Slayer, and that's what happened with this thing. You know, 3.5 hours, a bit soft for D2. It wore out faster than expected. Sharpening, again, that 220 grit stone was kind of gritty or sticky. It felt soft. Not as bad as the Camillus, but, you know, I could feel it. And ergonomics were fantastic. And, I mean, overall, it's a really good knife. It's just the D2 is a little on the soft side. So, all that being said, thanks for looking at my crap. Subscribers, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for participating in the giveaway. Thank you guys for being there on the live stream. And by the way, that live stream was a ton of fun. We got through with this thing and we wound up on a massive side tangent with core memories on cartoons we forgot. That was so much fun. Like, I was exhausted, gonna shut it down. That got started and added like an hour and a half. So thank you guys so much for being there. Comments, I love some feedback. Let me know what you think about this thing. Maybe you know more than I do about what's happening with the steel. Words are hard, but all that being said, y'all have a nice day.